increase in disciplinary and an increase in attendance, right? So chronic absenteeism is something that we are constantly trying to support across schools. So really robust data that we're seeing quantitatively on the power of these policies. And then qualitatively, we're hearing from students and from teachers. So the two things that I wanted to highlight here, and one of these examples is from Georgia, from a district that implemented phone-free schools already, is the words creative is bubbling up as something that's really important that we're hearing from students, and reducing those distractions to give people and students back that valuable time that they need. Really, really promising when you think about the power of what's happening during the school day, that you're freeing up students' minds to have the time to think and have the time to be creative. And then thinking about what teachers are hearing, we're anecdotally getting a lot of information on just the feeling of a change of culture across buildings. So instead of walking into a lunchroom where you see heads down, phones out, nobody engaging, students are starting to ask, "Oh, can I bring in a pack of playing cards so I can play with my friends during lunch?" Or can I sit over here, start a new club, right? You're just seeing a shift in the engagement with peers that I think is a true testament to the power of this work. So that is all I have from the national perspective, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I did have one question for you. Because in Georgia, our school districts operate fairly independently. They get some sort of high-level guidance from our Department of Education, but other than that, they pretty much do their own thing. So I was curious about why you did not recommend that flexibility for the school districts.
I think that's a great question. I think it's how you think about what flexibility should be given. So if you're providing the floor in terms of what you think is, from a state level and from a policy level, most impactful for learners, and then give districts the flexibility to implement it in terms of how they store the phones, or how learners the consequences that are put in place, those I think are flexibilities, absolutely spot on. But my recommendation would be, from a statutory level, what are those non-negotiables, and then give the implementation flexibility around those to your districts.
Thank you. Senator Mallow, you had a question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. As we were just talking, a question popped into mind. One of the things that happened maybe 2 years ago, we had a hoax of a school shooting. You know, the people were calling in, and you know what? One of the problems we identified was every student had a cell phone, and if there was an active shooter inside of the school, because people were on their cell phones, they were making calls to their parents. It overwhelmed law enforcement with people trying to come get their kids from the school, and they were trying to get control of the scene. And so, in talking about this, wanted to just ask, what have you seen in regards to that as relates to school safety from other states and other jurisdictions, as you had laid out in the graph?
Yeah, so absolutely what we're hearing is it is much better for law enforcement if learners do not have access to their phones during an emergency situation, but coupling that with very clear guidelines on how to communicate with parents, because word does spread very fast. One parent gets a hold of the information and everybody in the neighborhood knows. So having some type of clear mechanism through email, phone chains, right, like whatever the district has set up to clearly communicate, please do not come get your learner right now. Here is what is happening, that you need both, and to make sure that parents feel safe and assured in the response that is happening.
Do you have anything? Sorry, Senator Payne.
Yes, if you have you had any kind of pushback from parents, and what would be the number one that you would say would be the pushback from taking their children's phones while they're
The number one has been, how do I get a hold of my student during an emergency situation is what we're hearing.
okay? That's I kind of assumed that. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next presenter, who is here with us live, Superintendent Grant Rivera from Marietta City Schools. The floor is yours. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, Madam
And
Chair.
before you start, let me just say this meeting is being live streamed and it will be available on the Senate website in perpetuity. So people can go back and watch it at their convenience. Go right ahead. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity. And certainly, I had not met my friend in Nashville, but we're having some similar conversations for what was just shared. So I think you'll see some overlap as he pulls this up. Let me share with you that I have I provided to you our slides, if that's helpful. If you wish to take notes. More than one of you sat down and said, "What is this?" And I'm going to refer to this in just a moment, but this is the resource that we use in Marietta to try to address this very conversation we're having today. But just as context, just under 9,000 kids, 12 schools up in Marietta, and I've served as a superintendent for the last 8 years. And I will tell you that our teachers in recent years have just been absolutely exhausted. And they feel as if every class there is a whack-a-mole with a cell phone in middle school and high school. So this past year, we decided to do something about it. And I'll share with you again, we did not collaborate in advance, but you're going to see some similar numbers. As she mentioned, the average young person is receiving 237 notifications a day. If that was a parent saying, "I love you," that might be one conversation, but actually overwhelmingly it's from social media, specifically Snapchat and Discord. Now, I did not know what Discord was. I had to ask a middle schooler. It's linked to a gaming platform, but 237 notifications a day. That is why our kids are distracted in school. They're not paying attention to the teacher. They're paying attention to, and they're curious about the notifications. That's just the dynamic of a 11, 12, 13, 14, 18-year-old brain. This was referenced previously, but young people in middle school and high school are spending on average over 5.5 hours on their smartphones per day. That's a result of a more recent study by the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics. 5.5 hours a day on their smartphones. And as referenced previously in the slide, an hour and a half of that on average is being found, is an hour and a half of that is during the school day. 6.5 hour school day, where an hour and a half they're on their phone. That to me tells me that with 237 notifications and constantly a phone in their hand where they're trying to hide it from a teacher, there's just a lot of distractions for children in schools. And I think this is something that wasn't in the previous presentation, but it's worth acknowledging. 59% of teenagers are on their phones. Will self-report being on their phones from midnight to 5 a.m. So we talk about distractions in class. We talk about attention elsewhere, and yet we also have to acknowledge there's a whole host of ramifications around children and cell phones in particular, particularly when it comes to sleep deprivation. And this then obviously leads to the obvious for anybody, especially a group concerned about children and families. There are significant impacts on emotional well-being and brain development when you start looking at the frequency of social media. So if you string this thing across, you've got notifications coming in all throughout the day, in excess of hundreds for the average kid. You've got a cell phone and screens in front of kids for a large portion of their entire day, acknowledging that an hour and a half of that is during a school day. And then we have the obvious presence and the impact of social media and what that could mean for a child and their well-being. So as they say, when you know better, you do better. And that was really our journey in Marietta. And as we started this school year, we decided that we would provide Yondr pouches. Again, this was our, if you will, answer to that concern about what do we do with cell phones during the school day. What happens in Marietta in grades 6, 7, and 8 across 2,100 kids is that every day when a child walks in the building, they will go to first period. There'll be an announcement over the intercom that says, kids, if you have your phones, turn them off, lock them up. And every kid will be given one of these pouches. They put their phone inside and they press the button and close it. If you decide you want to try that and you lock your phone up, I have a magnet. I'll unlock it for you, I promise. But they lock their phones up. And then the child will keep this pouch with them all day long. Last period, 2 minutes left in the school day, we'll make an announcement and the teachers will go around and unlock every pouch. We keep the pouch. Kid takes the phone, they go home. The next day we do it all over again. There obviously are a lot of different ways to do it. They made reference to teachers storing phones. I will tell you that in Marietta, as a former high school principal for 9 years, these things are worth $1,000 a piece. The last thing I want is a teacher taking possession of a phone to put them in a bin or in a hanging shoe rack when they've got 30 kids in their classroom. And if one of those disappears, we're on the hook for $1,000. So our answer, not the only answer, but our answer was to purchase these pouches, to allow students, to direct students to lock them up, and they keep them during the day. Sir, I got you. I'll take care of you, I promise. I got you. Listen, if we can hang with 2,100 middle schoolers, I think I could take the two of you here. We'll take care of you, I promise. So let's just talk about what we found and kind of how we approached it. So in Marietta, acknowledging that the students kept the phone secured all day long, we had to accommodate medical exemptions, students who needed access to their phones due to medical reasons. That was simple. We also put in a process where families could reach their child during the school day if they needed to, whether it's about changing from a carpool to a bus rider or something else. We create a process where families can communicate with their kids. Kids can go to the office. They can call home to a parent in the presence of a caring adult who will unlock their phone. And then I think, as question was asked earlier, Senator Payne, like the greatest concern around safety and security, we give every single teacher in our building this magnet so they can unlock in the event of an emergency. There are other districts around the country who've chosen to put, much like they do at concert venues and comedy shows, they will put a magnet on each exit door, and the child unlocks as they leave the school day. At the end of the day, we chose, as one of the few districts across the country, to give every teacher a magnet. And so therefore, in the event of an emergency, they can unlock the pouches when it's safe to do such. As we say to families all the time when they're concerned about safety, I don't want a child staring at their phone during a school crisis or an active shooter. I want them listening to the directions of a caring adult who's been trained to save their life, and then we'll unlock your phone so you can reach your parent. So what have been the outcomes in Marietta? There were some references to some national trends. I'll share with you our data across our 2 middle schools. If I ask, and we did, today's 8th graders and compare them to if I asked them to compare their 8th grade experience to their 7th grade experience, same children, same schools, last year no pouch, this year pouch, 22% of them will say to you, the behaviors in my classroom allow the teacher to teach so I can learn. It's very powerful. And we collected this data through collaboration with Emory University and Children's Healthcare, who's helping us really study thoughtfully what are the impacts on students, staff, and families, both in school and out of school. But as the question came earlier about the frustration of teachers, I will share with you the feedback from Marietta teachers. Our Marietta middle school teachers said, when asked, how has the device changed your experience as an educator, 68% of them said, quote, I feel either much or slightly less stressed about classroom management and teaching. And I think it's not only about the well-being of a child, but when you think about the burnout rate and the number of teachers who are leaving education, 68% of them in Marietta feel they are more successful because we've allowed them to teach and build relationships with children and not monitor cell phones, which was a losing battle. Same number, how has the new device policy, which is now this year compared to last year, affected your ability to do your job? I'm better able to carry out my daily responsibilities, 68% of them. I think for us, it's exceptionally validating. The children, the middle school kids are telling us their classroom experience is better, and the teachers feel as if they are able to better teach and do their jobs. For us, that's extremely powerful. Previously, the previous presenter shared some other data. I'll share with you anecdotal data that we learned from Emory University and Children's Healthcare doing feedback groups with our students and our staff. Our staff and our administrators will tell you that discipline is down significantly. We will know more at the end of this year when we have comparative data, but discipline is down. You know what hurt my heart with middle schoolers? Is that middle schoolers, if they're going to get into a fight, they're not trying to settle a problem. They're actually just trying to get on social media. And far too many times we had kids who would agree to meet before the first punch was thrown. There'd be 30 cameras up recording it so they could post it on social media. That is gone in Marietta because there's no scene and there's no social media. So discipline is down. Hall passes, teachers will tell you, kids don't ask to go to the bathroom with the same frequency. And when they go, they're not gone as long. Why? Because they would use going to the bathroom as a chance to check their phone. Athletics, when Emory and Children's Healthcare interviewed our coaches and our school bus drivers, they would say, we are more focused in after-school activities like athletics because there's been no drama during the school day. The phones are away. The kids aren't getting jacked up on social media about something that may or may not involve them. And then parent feedback at our middle grades, what I appreciate, and I sit before you not just as a superintendent, but as a dad of a sixth grader. Apparently in Marietta, the gift to give a sixth grader at the holidays is a cell phone. And what parents told us resoundingly in our parent feedback sessions was, we do not feel the pressure to give our kid a phone because they don't have any reason for it at school. So I think for us, as we step back for a moment, and certainly I'm happy to take any questions you may have, we knew we had to do something. The complexity of what to do, and certainly how that impacts policy and legislation, that's for you. I do schools, I don't do you, right? But I think for us, we found a solution that allowed us to address that thoughtfully in middle schools and try to acknowledge the concerns that families had, and yet also acknowledge what our students and families telling us, as the previous presenter shared, it's overwhelmingly that these are a distraction in school. It impacts academics, it impacts their well-being, it impacts their relationships. And in Marietta, we just chose to imagine a different reality in our middle school. So I'm certainly happy, Madam Chair, to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Full disclosure, Marietta Schools is in my Senate district, so just FYI. And I know that other districts are doing similar things around the state. This is just an example of one of the approaches. I did have two questions. One is the cost of the pouches and how you dealt with that in your budget process. And then also, why are you not including high school?
So the cost of the pouches for Marietta City Schools is $25.50 a piece. Like, I wish it were cheaper. I wish it were easier. We prioritize that inside of our budget. And we're able to do that for our 2,100 middle schoolers. Oh, Senator Kirkpatrick, the high school question. I believe in my heart that the addiction is more significant at high school than it is in middle school. The middle school families, during the time that I provided feedback sessions and what have you with families, I had one parent over a period of several months say to me, well, I'm fine with the phones, just don't take their smartwatch. We said, no. This is about cell phones and smartwatches because they have the similar functionality. I had one parent in all of our middle school engagement share with me they had a concern because middle school families aren't used to being as connected to their kid. I have socialized in our community that I think there is value in having a discussion for grades 9-12. That has been one of the most challenging experiences I've had in my 8 years as superintendent. Because I respect that every family has a different perspective on safety and being able to reach their child and what have you. So I sit before you here. I had 2 community meetings last week. I knew there was a community meeting last night for which I was not invited, where they detailed all the reasons why the idea of rolling this to high school was not a good idea. So to answer that question, I think that story has yet to be written. I am deeply interested in the feedback from our teachers about whether they feel this would be valuable at the high school. And certainly I'm always deferential and respectful of what our board may want. But as an educator sitting in front of you with 26 years, having deeply invested in this work in middle grades, it's an absolute no-brainer to me. It should be in place at high school in some way.
Thank you. Senator Mallow, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the co-chair of the 89 caucus with my good friend, Senator Bo Hatchett, we probably are the generation that was on the T9 texting in the pocket with flip phones when they came out. I had a Motorola Razr. And my question is, there was no internet, no unlimited data. Minutes weren't free, so you couldn't talk all day. In fact, you had to wait till after 9. So my question is on the $25 cost per pouches. Where can you budget that? Can you budget it in capital and put that in eSPLOS and go on a referendum? Can you pay for it out of school safety? What's the bucket or pot of money that you can use to purchase these pouches. My concern is just the cost to taxpayers, number one. And number two, this seems to be a school safety issue to me. And so I would think that those funds could be used and applied there as well. But I want to hear where you all did that.
So let me speak first transparently about how the specific fund that we used. We used charter funds. And that was as a result of believing this was an innovative approach to address a comprehensive concern. I do, Senator, agree and that this absolutely could fall under safety funds as well that are allocated for schools. I think there isn't a direct link to school safety. And then certainly, I mean, let me just use some numbers. So in Marietta, we have a $162 million general fund budget. If we wanted to outfit pouches at the high school, and I'm using only that example because it's front of mind for me, 2,600 kids, we are roughly looking at, by the time you do pouches, do magnets for every staff member, and then a box that we will secure in every classroom, so therefore the magnet can be secure, it's $92,000. There are a number of philanthropic partners that we have been talking to who may be interested in that, but I will say that $92,000 amongst a $162 million general fund budget, I would say that our money is a reflection of what we value. I choose to value children building relationships and learning in classrooms. And I think we could absorb that if necessary. And we did for our middle school.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And my last question would be, have you all studied to see any way where students could then purchase a magnet like this online? And then, I could charge $10 and unlock everybody's phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm the magnet, kid.
You are the,
What's my question?
you're like the kid in high school who had the bag full of candy and you were selling all the.
Always an entrepreneur, baby.
Here's what I'll say. So it's interesting, right?
Turning your mic off now.
So, right. So listen, we're trying to outsmart 2,100 middle schoolers, and that's difficult. For us, what's actually really interesting is when no child has a phone, if they pull it out because they have a magnet or because they banged it on the ground and figured out how to open it, it's actually really easy to see because no kid in the cafeteria has it. Harder than that. Can I tell you a funny joke? So I had a middle schooler who decided to put the phone in there, and if you bang it really, really hard, which we can do out in the hallway if you'd like, it'll open after you repeatedly hit it, but they broke their phone. But to answer your point, when no kids have phones and one kid pulls them out, then it's very easy for us to address. We don't put that burden on the teacher. We administratively manage it. And I'll also say this, middle school kids are great at snitching on each other. So middle schoolers got a magnet, we're going to know pretty quick.
Okay, we got a couple more questions and we do have one more presentation, so I'll ask y'all to keep it concise. Go ahead, Senator Burns.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your leadership in this area. I know it's troubled waters. Speak a little bit about the academic impact of not having access to a cell phone. Have you seen anything that would suggest that we're getting academic outcomes that are improving?
Yeah, I'll respond briefly out of respect for time. So I want to be careful about drawing a direct correlation between cell phone pouches and A's and B's and what have you, because quite honestly, I hope it's great teachers who are better this year than they were last year. So we have to be careful about how we create those correlational, relationships. I will tell you that our teachers say that kids are more focused in class and that they are more creative, they are more engaged. So right now I'll take that very subjective feedback, and over time we'll continue to look at the more academic analytics to get an understanding.
But you would hope that it would have a positive impact.
Absolutely. Let's say when they're focused and not distracted, take out 237 notifications a day, and I'll show you kids that are learning better.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. I've gotten a lot of good information. And one thing I was going to ask is, do you have an issue with theft, or do the kids lose the phones? Do they just carry this pouch with them in their pocket, or
They
keep
do.
it in their book bag?
Yes, sir. To answer your question, so they will keep this in their book bag. Most kids will carry it in their book bag. They're not carrying it in one hand with their bag in the other, because honestly, they don't need it. So they put it next to their binder, they put it next to their paper. And we have not had an issue with theft. Can I be honest with you? We had a lot more of issue with theft when the phones were out, because the kids could see what they were snagging. But right now, these are in the pouch. It's very nondescript. We've had no issues with theft from pouches, certainly compared to previous years.
The co-chairman of the 89 caucus mentioned the Motorola Razr. It made me think of a time when I was in gym class, and a friend of mine had one of those phones, and he thought someone stole it, but he actually misplaced it. And he went to my gym coach and he said, "Someone stole my Razr." And he said, "Why do you have a Razr at school?" And he said, well, discussion went on. He said, well, I'm not going to search everyone for it. You're an idiot for buying a $250 razor to begin with. You can't even grow a beard. So
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. And I'm sure that people who want more information about what you're doing will reach out to you.
Certainly.
And thanks for coming down live.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have one more presentation, and I want to introduce on Zoom Kevin McPherson, who has another approach to this. We know there are a lot of different ways to skin this cat. So Kevin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good to go. We have to be out of the room in 13 minutes. So if you could just proceed, I'd greatly appreciate it.
All right, challenge accepted. I'll be precise. Can you see my screen and see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. My name is Kevin McPherson. I'm the founder of Detezo. Detezo is a new mobile app that I launched that uses QR codes to enforce phone-free schools. So what's the problem exactly? So we heard during the past two presentations, states are increasingly embracing phone-free schools. We also heard $25 per pouch. So there's a dilemma. Teachers either have to be technology police officers or schools have to invest $25 per student to make this happen. So I have the Yonder pouch here. The question becomes, what happens if you can't afford a Yonder pouch, or you commit to a Yonder pouch and then realize you want more flexibility, or you're getting pushback from parents that feel, we made the investment, I'm not happy with this investment, my kid's putting a fake phone in the pouch, or I want emergency services accessible. So there's a few challenges here, and I thought there had to be a better way. And so that's where Detezo comes in. First things first, Detezo is entirely free. There's no catches or gimmicks. So it's meant to be a very accessible solution for schools, especially those that might not have the finances to make Yonder pouches happen. On my screen here, we'll play the role of faculty. I'm going to create a zone. A zone is just a QR code. So I have the zone name. I already pre-populated it. Today's school day, a custom message, and then the QR code. I can share this very easily. So if I have multiple faculty that need to display the QR code or however it works, I can send a text or an email or however else I share content on my phone. So we have the zone created. I'm going to switch roles here and now go to the student perspective. So one thing to call out, Detezo is available already on the App Store and Android Store. And students don't have to create an account. So what you can see on my screen here is how it appears as soon as a student downloads the app. There's no personal information, no account creation or anything else. They just download and use the app. In terms of using the app, we created the QR code. I'm going to scan this QR code, and you can see what happens, right? The information I showed you before is now being displayed on my phone. So you can see the name, the message, and then emergency services. So again, I know there's mixed opinions here on emergency services, but let's say also a student has their medical ID on their phone or other important info. Using the built-in features, I can access emergency services at any time. So it helps address some of that concern from parents that are maybe hesitant to fully commit to not having access to their kids or fearing emergencies. So that's built in. At the end of the school day, kids are in a rush, right? They have places to go. I always had sports practice after. It's very manual with the Yonder pouch to lock and unlock. So I thought, okay, what if a school has thousands of kids and at the end of the day, we want to give their phones back automatically? So as the faculty member, I could push a button from the app and every student immediately gets their phone back, right? So my phone is blocked right now. You can see I don't have access to any of my apps. So I'm using YouTube here. It's blocked. The weather app. Everything besides the phone and messages app, which Apple considers an emergency service, is blocked. Again, if there's concerns of kids using that, they scan and then they put it in their backpack. That way they're not calling or texting during the day. But okay, the school day's over, so I can push a button to unlock phones. Or let's say I'm a 6th student and I need to go home early. I'll just scan the QR code and you can see now my phone is entirely unlocked, right? So at once, whether it's one kid or 1,000 kids, if I push that button, everyone gets their phone back automatically. I also get a notification So I'm informed right away, I have my phone back again. So this is just meant, again, to be a very flexible solution. With QR codes, there's an opportunity. Okay, one teacher wants to use it, or on days that we have an SAT or a test, or my kids leave campus for lunch and I want them to be able to scan out and then scan back in. It's meant to be highly flexible and adapt to schools. Again, it's entirely free. It's available today. And my hope is that it just offers more of a hybrid solution where those schools that don't have the funds or want to kind of ease into phone-free spaces have a very highly flexible solution without having to commit to a contract with Yonder or put the burden on their teachers and faculty to make phone-free spaces happen.
Thank you,
Any
Kevin.
questions?
That was very fast. Very cute dog on your screensaver, by the way.
Yeah, it's my coworker. Thank you.
Your coworker. Got it. Okay. The reason that I asked Kevin to share was just to illustrate that there are different solutions to the problem, and depending on what your school district looks like, there may be different choices of ways to solve the problem. With that, any questions from the committee for Kevin? Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be
Yeah,
talking
thank you very
to
much.
Okay, thanks. And thanks to those in the audience. If you do want any information, you can watch the live stream on the Senate website, or you can contact my office and we'd be happy to share the PowerPoint presentations or whatever you need. Thanks very much. I'm sure we've got one bill in play on the House side. We don't deal with House bills much in the Senate at this stage. And I'm sure there may be more bills forthcoming either this year or in the second year of the biennium. So stay tuned and thanks for your interest. Meeting's adjourned.